Today we're talking about the problem of absolutes. I was reading Ayn Rand's works. I'm a big fan of her. I think that she's done pretty good for herself in terms of making a case for the importance of individualism. She makes a point that people should be empowered to be responsible for their own lives. They should reap the benefits of their own labor and their own minds. They should think for themselves, and they should not be really beholden to anyone else. They should be free. And that makes sense. It makes sense until you start saying, well, if you're completely against collectivism, then are you saying that we should just not have street lights in front of the houses of people that didn't pay for them? Are we going to say that maybe you shouldn't get medical care at all if you can't afford it? Because after all, it's your responsibility to take absolute account for your life. So if you want medical care, then you should pay for it. And if you can't pay for it, then you should accept the fact that it's your time to die. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Or do we want to live in a world where people do care about each other? People do have a sense that we are connected. We share a common destiny. We are meant to give what we can to help others along their way. From each according to their ability to each according to their need. But that's Marxism. And if we look at communism, when it's been rolled out in any country, you'll never find good things there. Because when you say, well, let's take from everyone and give to those who don't have anything, then people who are inclined to be lazy tend to get lazier. And people who are entitled to their cut tend to take a bigger cut. People who are greedy tend to get greedier. And whoever is responsible for figuring out how fair distribution works usually winds up skimming their share off the top. So communism doesn't seem to work in its pure utopian sense. But greedy capitalists also have their problems because they don't really care about other people as long as they are getting ahead. So you see, there's this duality there. If you look at it in absolute terms, you can't really say that either perspective is going to work out very well if you allow it to be treated as an absolute. We need to have individualism. We need to have personal accountability. We need to have enough collectivism to make sure that we have an opportunity to help others when they need help. And that's the problem with pretty much any ethos or perspective that's out there, whether it's Ayn Rand or a religious point of view or a political one. Everything has good ideas included in it until you start saying, let's make it an absolute law. And once you do that, then you become part of the problem, because nothing can be treated as an absolute. Just about everything in life has to be some sort of thing with a provision for an exception to the rule baked into it. Anytime someone says, I have the key to truth, that's a red flag. Because sooner or later, they're going to get to the point where they believe that they're so convinced of whatever truth it is that they've found that they're willing to take away other people's right to question it in the name of some greater good. And by contrast, anyone who wants to be 100% right all the time, usually they want to be right all the time until they get to a point where they have to face the reality that they don't have all the answers. And then they start to soften up and they turn to people who they would have probably ridiculed in the past and say, hey, can you help me? That greedy capitalist who says everyone needs to stand on their own 2 feet and I'm not going to give anybody anything. Well, if they lose everything one day, when they're humbled and they're hungry, they're going to want that sandwich just like anybody else. So we just have to remember that there isn't really any perspective in life that's wrong. But there's also no perspectives in life that should exist in a vacuum. I think I've said this before, but it bears repeating. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are very willing to go out and say, you know, this or that political faction is wrong. And, you know, if you're a Republican, you think the Democrats shouldn't exist. If you're a Democrat, you think that, you know, the Republicans shouldn't exist and stuff if you're in the United States. And there's all of this argument back and forth, and people feel so passionately, so strongly about their side. But the reality is, if you asked most people, would you like to live in a world where there's just only one party, there's only one political system, and it's yours? Most rational, normal people would say, no, I don't want that. I want there to be a discourse, a healthy discussion between the two sides. And so if that's what you believe, if you believe that the other side should exist, because we don't want a one-party state, then you also have to acknowledge the fact that the reason why they should exist is because they're right. Maybe they're not right about everything all the time, but neither are you. But we do need a diversity of thought and opinion. And for every extreme, we need a counterbalance. So anytime people start to say they should exist at the expense of everyone else, that just doesn't work. Eventually, all of those sorts of attitudes lead to some sort of a collapse when people face the reality that we do, in fact, need each other. And if we do, then there's no reason for hating one another. There's no reason for being extremely critical of one another. Because at the end of the day, we are two sides of the same coin. Some people look at life through the lens of faith. Some look at it through the lens of science. Some look at it through a lens of tradition. Some through a lens of progress. And we need all types in order to have a healthy society. So we should avoid extremes. We should avoid looking at life through a lens of absolutes, and instead embrace an attitude that has room for every idea at the table. So even if you're inclined to criticize someone, don't criticize them so harshly that you would wish for their opinions to cease existing. In any case, wherever you find yourself, as always, best luck on your adventure. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.